1969, the last passenger trains travelled the Waverley line.
Hawick station now presents a very dismal scene, and the once familiar railway sounds are no more than memories.
And the Central Borders area was then at least 40 miles from the nearest main railway station.
There's no question that extending the railway south of Tweed Bank and reinstating it largely on the previous alignment is feasible in engineering terms. You know, the case has been made really by the initial project to bring the railway back to Tweed Bank, because that had to overcome numerous very challenging obstacles. And whilst there will be different challenges with the extension, there is nothing that would be of a scale different to what's already been done. The remains of the old railway are there. They should be viewed as an asset. They have existing value. Yes, they are degraded. Yes, they will require upgrading and repair, but there is an environmental benefit really to reusing that existing asset and refurbishing it, compared to, for example, a wholesale new construction. The success the line to Tweed Bank has had, huge numbers of passengers have used it. It's answered the critics in the best way possible, and I think it means that when it comes to extending the line, those arguments won't hold the same power that they did previously. And I think it will be easier. It's already easier to argue that this form of railway expansion and development is a viable economic regeneration strategy. We're already seeing it with the line currently being built, reopened to Leavenmouth. That wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the success of the Borders Railway. Clearly, if you look at somewhere like Hawick, there is a fundamental issue that if somewhere is not well connected, it's difficult for people to access education, it's difficult for people to access work, and that will be a factor in low attainment, low aspiration, and it will lead to people leaving the area to seek the opportunities they need and not returning. Fundamentally, unless you address that connectivity need, you are never going to change that dynamic. But there needs to be, I think, a more positive angle to the argument as well. And I think that comes through connecting communities across the border, because actually there's a cultural aspect to this. South of Scotland and the north of England have so much in common, so many of the same assets in terms of the population they have and their culture and skills, and the landscape and their shared history. They've got a lot more in common with each other, arguably, than they do with the central belt of Scotland or the big cities of further south in England. So there's a real opportunity to build something positive here on a cross-border basis that means that places like the Borders, Hawick, re-establish a link to Carlisle, which is the border city. It's a regional hub. It's got very ambitious plans of its own to, develop its identity and be a centre for work and tourism. And these communities can all achieve more together than they do apart. And I would argue that putting in that missing rail link from Carlisle into the borders allows the whole cross-border region really to start to meet its potential.
Transport in London, and the central borders area
Busy
was then
Hawick
at
station
least 40 miles
now
from the
presents
nearest
a very
main
dismal
railway
scene, and the once familiar railway sounds.
It doesn't need to be futuristic, it doesn't need to be what's scientific, it doesn't need to be cutting edge. It's a railway that will transform lives forever.